Wednesday. Turn the volume. Hi, everybody. Pamela Radley, Older Public Title. I have with me today Melika McGanty. Melika is an absolute, here, come in the picture with me, Melika. Melika's an absolute bomb. She is absolutely fantastic. She's a senior escrow officer. What, 30? No,
like 33 years.
33 years. She looks like so young for 33 years, but she has been in the business that long. Such a wealth of knowledge. Today, we're going to be going over the preliminary title report. And then we're going to do red flags on the preliminary title report. So some basics on how to read it, and then some red flags on the stuff that can really hold up your transaction. So we want to make sure that we put you in the right position. Melika, so knowledgeable on everything. So I'm just going to let her take it away. Miss Melika.
Hi, guys. Happy Wednesday. And thank you for joining us.
Can I move it this way a little bit?
Got it.
That's what people. Perfect.
Okay.
And I'm just going to step back just a tiny. There you go. There you go. Perfect.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Look good.
Then you got your group. Yeah.
Push it back more. Hold on. Let us get.
Sorry, I didn't mean
No.
But I'm just.
And do I need to click the thingies or will it go?
Scroll. Your 2 fingers maybe, or?
Oh.
Yeah. Carly just made it work. Oh, so we don't have to scroll. We just do the arrow. You scroll up.
Oh, okay. Just scroll up.
There you go.
Okay, guys. Let the games begin, as I would say. Okay, so first of all, when it comes to your title report, you guys, that's probably the most important thing that you're going to start off your transaction with. I always say, and I apologize if I don't follow the script 100%, I'm just going to speak from the mouth. But I want you to know, when you guys go out there and you're searching a property or you're taking a listing for a property, that title report is going to offer you all your knowledge on whether you can close this deal or not. Those of you that work with me, you'll know that I will call you up and let you know that I'm making the phone call to educate you on what's on title, and I'm getting you educated to let you know whether we get a paycheck or not. Because really, this is the story to tell you what's going to happen on your transaction. It's going to explain to you who your clients are. Some of us think that we believe we know who all the clients are, but when it comes to vesting, there may be somebody else there that we're not even in tune with, that we actually have to also work with, that we don't even have a valid listing until we get this other signature. So that alone is a reason to read your title report. It's so important. It's an important tool, and a lot of people just graze right over it. They don't even pay attention. And if you don't read it, you don't know whether you're closing your deal or not. You're not educated. And the more wisdom that you have, the better off you are with you and your clients and your peers that are all around you. Yes.
Say something?
Yes.
I don't know who's on the call that's worked with you or haven't, but that's like my favorite thing that you do.
Is it?
All
Oh,
over everything.
thank you.
And I've been in a few different escrows, and there's like some things that are missed. Like, obviously it's my fault for not catching it, but the fact that you do that right up front, I love that.
Oh, thank you. I'm going to take this off, so I'm having a hot flash. Oh, thank you so much. I appreciate that, because I do really try. You guys, I put all my efforts out there. The reason I'm even here today is to give you wisdom and give you knowledge. Because the more educated you are out there, the more you have that wisdom with your clients, you're going to seal the deal. It's the ones that come in and you're up against you're not the only one on that listing appointment. You are up against 5 to 6, maybe even 10 people. But I guarantee you, if I go into an appointment, I'm going to steal that deal. I'm going to nail it because of my wisdom, right? All of my knowledge. So when you've got your people in front of you, your escrow officers in front of you, utilize them. Prey on their weakness, or not prey on their weakness, but prey on their knowledge. Try to get everything that you can out of them. But it all starts with you reading. If you actually read the tools that are in front of you, you're going to do great. It's the people that just try to wing it and try to roll with it that aren't going to wing it. And the hardest deals are the best deals to learn from. I still have been in this business over 30 years. I learn every day. I learn constantly. Okay, so with that being said, we're going to move on. So we basically told you our title report and what the reason is why we want to read it. Now we're going to go over the matters that are shown in that report. So the matters that are shown, the first thing we're going to talk about is the estate or interest covered. That's item number one. Number two is going to be the owner of the estate, which is really who's on title there. Number three is going to be the parcel of the land. Number four are defects, liens, and or encumbrances, which will be shown as exceptions in a contemplated policy if issued. Okay, number five will be other requirements, provisions, and matters of interest that are reflected as notes in the title report. So we're going to go over all of that. I'm going to explain it to you in detail.
Go to the next one. That's where you right there.
Here we go. Okay, so here's the first page of your title report, you guys. Item number one is indicating what our reference number is, our escrow number, our title number. Those of you that work with Orange Coast County Title, different title companies that don't handle title and escrow, these numbers are important to you. You have to know what you're talking about when you call. So that's our escrow number there. Item number two is the customer reference. Really doesn't matter. It could be the property address. It could be the client's last name. A lot of times I'll get phone calls though from agents that will say, hey, the client's name, is Cotton. Let's just say hypothetically, it may be spelt incorrect, could be a typo, but just for your knowledge, that doesn't really matter. It's not what we're insuring right there. It's just the client's name or a reference of an address. Number three is indicating who you need to contact. That would be like myself, Melika McGanty, with my contact information. You have any questions on this title report? Number four is indicating the property address. So important, so important. Pay attention to your address. Pay attention because things move fast. If you guys are working on a couple deals at the same time, it's easy to put an invoice from one into another file. It's so easy to go off of a way to, because if it's happened, it's been happened, to me. So the way I alleviate that is to putting my read and approved stamp next to the property address on everything I do. If a client is going to look at it, I want them to acknowledge it. That read and approved stamp goes right underneath the property address. We're both talking about the address. Make sure we're not talking about the neighbor's address or another file that you're working on, that you're disclosing that right property. So that's your property address. And I bring that up because we don't insure a product give a title insurance policy based on the address. It's all about the assessor parcel number. We don't insure by address. Some people may say to you, hey, this is not the address on the street, and you can be on a corner and that can run with two different addresses. But the post office has one address they go off of. As title insurance, we insure based on the APN, assessor parcel number. So
every now and then when you find there's a property and there's two parcel numbers.
That's a big deal. Yep, I'm going to get into that. It's a huge deal. This has actually happened to me. Pay attention, you guys, especially when you're in country property. If you're going out to investigate or even take a listing, doing your homework, you want to make sure that you got all parcels involved. Some properties have 3 parcels, some have 2 parcels. So you want to make sure. I've had actually escrows happen where they put one parcel and they didn't put the other one, which is like a sliver of the land or it's another piece of the property. We have closed escrow. And then we've got wind of it after the fact that it did when they went to go flip it and resell it, that they did not indicate both parcels. And it's a fixable situation, but it's work. And by heaven, by the grace of God, you pray nobody passed away. Because if that seller passed away, which I've had a seller that has passed away and they didn't deed, this was a living trust. The guy didn't deed, he deeded her into her trust, but he didn't deed the sliver parcel into the trust. So they had to go through probate just for that other piece of parcel that had to be able to transfer with the original single family dwelling.
How do you know, or how do you check? Because I would imagine like some people are like really old country properties where those things might happen.
You ask your clients, how many parcels do you have? Do you only have 1 parcel? Do you have 2? And a lot of times they will have maybe 2 or 3 parcels that they're not even paying taxes on. So you'll see parcel 1, that'll have a tax roll. Parcel 2, parcel 3 will not. It'll say no file status right now. And that tells you, okay, this all runs with this property, but there's no taxes to it, but it does run with the property. So checking with your seller, checking with us, we can indicate and double check that for you guys. But whatever you do, do not forget to put the parcel on your contract. I see a lot of agents don't put that. It's a big no-no. We insure by the APN, and make sure there's no typo. Make sure that last digit isn't a 4 and it should be a 6, because now we're insuring the neighbor's property, not yours. And that's huge when it comes to land, right? Because when you're on a single family dwelling, you can see the house, you actually can visually see it. But when it comes to land, you don't see all those parcels. So you don't even know that whether you're missing it or not. So that's why communicating with your seller, looking at having a conversation with them about it, asking if they've ever subdivided. That's a big question to ask. If you've got country property, have you ever subdivided? Have you ever deeded your easements, any easements of this property to your neighbor? I've had that happen where the neighbor was wanting to use the land for their garden, and they used it for so many years. Then the seller was finally wanting to sell, and they wanted to make sure that their neighbor had access to the garden that they had been using, so they created an easement for it to allow it. But definitely inquiring with your clients. You want to dig deep with your clients and make sure that you have all the knowledge, what they've done when they bought it, whether they've transferred it, whether they've added anybody on that maybe you don't know about, subdividing. And one other thing I'll say about country property is I always urge people to get a survey. It's costs money. It's just like an inspection, but it's the best money they can spend. People feel like they understand the boundary lines and they know that this is their property. And then when they go to build or they go to pull permits, they realize this, in fact, this piece is not their property and you have a problem on your hands. So spending the money and getting them educated on a survey and you getting your clients some vendors for surveyors is so beneficial, because then you actually know what they're getting. They know what the lot lines, a surveyor goes out and actually measures the lines, tells them exactly and plots it out what they will be purchasing.
Do you have any recommendations?
I do. Yeah. You send me an email and I'll send them to you. Yep. Okay. So that's it about the property address, you guys, and the APN. That's why those guys are so important when you guys put that APN and an address on a contract every single time. Item number 5 is indicating here that we are issuing this preliminary title report. When it says preliminary, prelim means, hey, this is just a snapshot. This is just a preliminary of what your final policy is going to be. It's not the final. So buyers, investors, if you want to play ball, please take a look at this. Make sure this is what you're ready to do. Because sometimes, there can be an easement there that they weren't aware of, or maybe there's not an agreement for the road maintenance, and your clients want to make sure that there's an agreement out there for road maintenance, and there is none. So that is another reason why you read these preliminary reports, make sure that the clients understand them. If I had a client buying country property, every easement, every CC&R and exception would be printed out and read and approved. Okay, so item number 6, you guys, is the date of your title report. So important. And this may be getting more important as we go into this next year. What the date means, it's our plant date. It means as of this date, let's just say hypothetically, January 17th, this is everything that's come up on this property. This is what we are able to show you as of this date. Now, the reason I say it's important is if you've got a seller, some clients that have had a hardship, maybe they haven't made a payment in 6 months. And when people have hardships, they decide to put the money on the food on the table for their family. They don't decide to pay the American Express bill or, a tax bill. They will provide for their family. It's just what people do. So when people are in that position, there's going to be liens that come out of the woodworks, your American Expresses, your Capital Ones, where you would think, no, that's not a secured lien. It will become secured because they'll go put a lien against the property, against the name. And then once you go to sell that property, it attaches and we have to then entertain that lien, meaning pay it off if they want to sell. So you wouldn't think about those kinds of things, but that's what comes up. And the date matters because if you've got a seller that hasn't made a payment in 6 or 9 months, we know we have a trustee sale coming up on it. The bank's ready to take that property back. If your plant date is 3 months behind and you're not paying attention, and the trustee sale went and recorded a deed stating they're taking it back on the court steps, they could take that property and sell it right underneath you, and you don't even know about it. And you put all this work and effort into it and marketing and spent money, and it's out of there. So that's why a date is important. If I know I have a client that is in that situation, I'm constantly dating down. I don't want a surprise at the end. Nobody does, right? So that's why that date is important. You don't want to be sitting on a stale dated title report.
So how long, if we came to you to get a prelim because we're listing a property and it's 4 months later, when we get into contract, is that okay?
If I know that it's been on a default, I'll start calendaring it every 30 days. If we're going to have a longer escrow, or I'll date it down every 2 weeks just to make sure. And you'll know too, ask your clients, because sometimes the clients will say, hey, you want to ask, and sometimes I don't want to talk about it, but you have to dig and say, hey, have you gotten any notices from your lender? Have you gotten any notices from the bank? Have you gotten any notices from anybody that may be coming to put a lien on this property? Because the attorneys, they have to send it out. They have to send them a notice saying that this is going out. And those are the notices that you're wanting to be educated on. Because then you're like, okay, I know that they've been notified. I know an attorney, a trustee got a hold of them. When you know that, tell your escrow officer so they can be in tune and be paying attention. Basically, what will come up is they'll record this lien or they'll record something there that now here you're in a lock period thinking that you're going to close escrow and your buyer's got a 15-day lock and we're not closing now. And that's going to cost money. So all these things can back up if you don't pay attention. And that's why that date's important. Any other questions on the date? Thanks, Ree. Okay, so number 7, you guys, is indicating who the title officer is. So a lot of times that won't be your escrow officer. That's going to be the title officer that actually put their license on this, and they're giving us the green light to go ahead and insure this product. Not that big of a deal for you guys. The lenders need to know who that is. Every lender needs to know that, just for your knowledge. The lenders can't even go into disclosing without having that knowledge. Okay, you guys, we're going to skip to page 7. And we're going to go over, this is literally page 2 of your title report.
They usually reach out to you guys to write with that.
What's that?
Lenders.
Yes. Yep. That's a lot of times they're wanting the title report, they're wanting fees. You know, the best thing you can do also is make sure your lender letter goes to your escrow officer, because I will always say, hey, do we know who the lender is? Do we know who that lender is? If you give that approval letter to us, there's no reason to ask, and we're going to move on just like a railroad. We don't need to ask. And the minute we get that contract, fees will be disclosed. The lender will get everything that they have. So the ball's now in their court and they can get your appraisal ordered. Okay, so number 8, you guys, is indicating the form of title policy that we can actually insure. This is important because this is us telling you, hey, we're either going to give you a homeowner's policy or a standard policy. So I use the analogy of like going to Macy's or going to Nordstrom's versus Macy's. Nordstrom's, we don't need a receipt. We can take it back. Macy's, we do. And when it comes to the homeowner's policy, every title company has a higher policy versus a standard policy. Ours is called the homeowner's policy of title insurance. So on number 8, I'm always looking on the policy. What can I issue? Because that's the title that's my people, my title officer saying, Melika, this is the policy I can issue to you guys. And I'm looking for a homeowner's. I'm not looking for it to say CLTA. That's what you're looking to be. If it says CLTA, you're going to go, why? And a homeowner's policy is a normal policy. That's what we should be insuring. We're insuring meets and bounds and a lot more extra coverage. Even liens and title liens or judgments that come in after the fact, we're insuring that on a homeowner's policy. We don't insure that on a standard policy. Big difference. And a standard policy is going to be issued to your corporation. So if you have a corporate buyer, corporation buyer, not an individual buyer, an LLC company or country property, that's when we will issue a homeowner's title, a standard CLTA title policy, because we can't insure all the meets and bounds. And that is the difference between the two. So when you're looking at your policy, if you say CLTA, you know that you're up. Why? And I will question my title officers. A lot of times I'll question them and say, hey, why does this say CLTA versus homeowners? And they'll say, well, this is a historic property in downtown Phoenicia, and and I don't think we can do it. But then they'll look a little deeper and go, you know what, we're willing to insure, and then they'll give it to me. But you don't really know, as an escrow officer who's educated, it's our job to make sure that we're paying attention to that. But then you want to have the knowledge as well for your own client, because you guys don't know what CLTA means versus homeowners policy means, but that is the difference between the two. And the bottom line, it's only a 10% difference in costs, literally 10%.
So when we're representing a buyer and they're an LLC.
Yes, then you're going to see a CLTA owner's policy, because we can insure as an individual, we're willing to issue more insurance. But as an LLC or corporation, we're not trying to insure unrecorded liens or judgments that are coming up on their behalf. Does that make sense?
That's 10% more to do the fee.
So to do the homeowners,
I think I'm a little bit confused. So when the seller is an LLC, but
no, when the buyer, because the buyer is buying that title insurance, the buyer is giving the copy of the homeowner's policy. So we're insuring them as the buyer with a standard policy versus a full homeowners, because they're not an individual, they're a corporation, they're an LLC company, which is a lot more liability. Okay. Yes. And also when you see there, it says homeowner's policy of title insurance and an Alta loan policy extended coverage. That means you guys were giving, if your buyer's doing a loan, we're giving a homeowner's policy for the owner and an Alta lender's policy for the lender. Every lender that lends money is asking for title insurance. They want to lend that money, but they also want to know if your client defaults that they're getting paid first. So that's what that Alta policy is ensuring. It's ensuring how people are entitled, whether taxes are paid, and whether they get paid before anybody else does, should they default. So that's what we're ready to ensure. That's what Alta, ALTA means. It's an Alta loan extended policy.
What is the acronym?
ALTA, it's American Land Title Association.
Good job.
Check. I had to think about it though. Okay, and then number 9, this is stating a state or interest in the land. So this is stating that we can give you a fee simple policy, which is what we give to every individual owner is a fee simple. However, you're either, if you see it says leasehold right there versus by number 9, it says leasehold versus fee. That's a difference. That means we can't give a full clean title policy. That means there's a leasehold of some sort on this property, and we have to have approval to see whether they even want to play ball because there's some kind of a lease going on. Okay, so number 9 is your vesting. So important. This tells you who is actually on title. I can't tell you how many times I hear from clients that they say, well, so-and-so was on the tax roll. This is where I pulled my information. If you guys want to know who's on title, please reach out to us. We can get you that information within 5 to 10 minutes, and we can send it to you of who's on title. Now, that's not giving you title insurance. We're not saying 100% we guarantee this is who's on title, but this is our snapshot of what we have access to before we run a full title policy. So whoever's on title, you want to pay attention to, make sure, I mean, what I look at is the spelling of their name. Some people could care less about the spelling if there's a typo. Some people have a fit over a typo. So, so I always try to pay attention, make sure I don't have a typo on the name, make sure there's not a junior, senior there that I'm not putting, because those are big deals. If you start writing a name and you don't have a junior or senior or the third there, you could be totally talking about their kid or their grandfather. So I pay attention to the name. And then the other most important thing here, see how it says husband and wife as joint tenants. Husband and wife is their vesting, but their tenancy is joint tenants, and tenancy matters. If you don't see a tenancy on title, that could be a problem at the time of death. If they just said husband and wife there and it didn't say anything else, this could go to probate. It doesn't indicate that joint tenants means right of survivorship. That means the house is automatically going to default to the other person on title. But if you saw nothing there, that means we're going to end up in probate. And some people, it could have been a typo. It could have been they forgot to add it. There's so many reasons. Sometimes I see people just go on title their name, and I'm like, well, are they married? Is there, is it a single man or an unmarried man? All of that matters. So when you are dealing with your clients and you're dealing with your buyers, ask these questions. Hey, how do you guys want to hold title? I would ask them before I even put them in the car, because the way you put their name on that contract is the way everything's going to run. So you want to know, hey, let me just know right now, your name may be Melika McGanty, but what is your legal name? My legal name's Melissa, so, and I don't sign with my full name. I just sign M. McGanty. So I would want M. McGanty on that contract. You should ask your clients, what do you prefer? How do you want your name to read? And then that way it's all going to run through. And then you also want to know, hey, are you married? Are you the only one contributing when you're purchasing this property? Because every penny has to be accounted for. And then you'll know, oh no, dad's giving a gift or Aunt Lucy's giving a gift. So ask those questions, find out, are they married? Are they single? Are they planning on getting married through the transaction? I've had that happen numerous times. And then that's a big deal. So if they're getting married during the transaction, it's okay. But let's have a conversation about how you're going to hold title and what your name's going to look like. A lot of people are, no, I want my new name to be on title. So if they do, they've got to get to the Social Security. They've got to get down there and get their appointments done and get it handled. But don't freak out. We can always fix it after the fact. A deed can always be changed. So just want you to know, have those conversations now. And that's the reason why the tenancy is important, because if there was no tenancy, we could end up in probate. We don't want any of that. But then when I see that it says joint tenants, it also tells you guys, hey, one of my sellers passed away during this transaction. We can still play ball with the other seller. And or if your seller is in a living trust, and they passed away during this transaction, you still have a deal on the plate. You don't have to go backwards. So that's a little bit about vesting. Item number 11 is describing the legal description. This is describing your land, especially when you got country property, pay attention to this. But this is just letting you know when the county actually sat down with the builder and they put this subdivided the lots out. This is the legal description, which describes that specific property right there. And right below it is the assessor parcel number. See that? Now that, you guys, is so important. This is where we want to make sure if we have multiple parcels on your contract that we've got all those 3 parcels there or both parcels there. If you see one missing, let your escrow officer know immediately so they can get their title report amended to reflect that. Okay, so now I'm going to skip to page 9. How are you guys doing? Good. Okay, so number 9, item number 1 are property taxes. Every title report has to reflect the property taxes first. Does anybody know why? Because taxes take priority over anything. They take priority over your mortgage. They take priority over anybody. Taxes get paid before anybody does. And this is why if you have a client that's got a PACE, wide grain, or a HERO loan, this is why it must be paid in full before the new buyer can take it over. If they're getting a loan, if you got an all cash buyer buying a property with PACE or HERO, they can buy it, doesn't have to be paid off. But if you've got a loan involved, a new lender won't take that, take subject to that because they take priority. If the buyer's defaulted, the taxes would get paid and the PACE HERO would get paid before the lender did. So number 1 is reflecting the taxes. Number 2 are going to show you the taxes that are actually accessible for that year, which is, this is where you guys should be paying attention to in reading the land and the dwelling, the land and the improvement. So what I do, the first thing I'm looking at is my taxes. I'm looking to see whether they're paid or not, because that's going to tell me what I have to prorate. So if you guys have done net sheets for your clients, these are your taxes that you can roll off of right here. And it also tells you, see where it says exemption 7,000. This gives me, this gives me an insight. This tells me that, hey, this client may live here or did live here as their primary residence at one time. Maybe they've rented it now, but they did at one time. So that is an indicator when I look at, yes.
You've got a question in the chat.
Okay.
Up there.
Do I just click on the chat? If you have multiple parcels, how do you know which to submit, or would you do all? Yes. Yes. You want to put all of your parcels on that contract and make sure that when you get your title report that it's reflecting all parcels. That's a big deal. Big, big, big deal. Great question. Okay, so the 7,000 tells me whether this was owner occupied or not. And then the land and the improvement. This tells you, you guys, the land, this is what they feel the dirt is worth. They mean your county tax collector or tax assessor. They feel that this land is worth 125,000, the dirt. And then the improvement, which is your structure, your dwelling, that's worth about 50 grand. So this tells you how the taxes are being assessed currently today. So now if you see these are really low and you're like, wow, that might be the first time homeowner, right? That might be the first owner of the property. That's a perk to sell to your client, to your buyer. Just so you know, you're getting the first, you're the second buyer or you're the third buyer to this home. Makes them feel better, makes them feel like this house was loved. They put a lot into it. That matters versus a property that's been flipped 5 or 6 times. I know it matters to me. So those are things to be paying attention to. And if those of you that don't know me, that do work with me, you'll know that I send out supplemental tax bills. I'll tell you what your client's supplemental tax bill is going to be. I pull my information right from here. Okay. It would behoove you all, if I was even taking a listing appointment and I was going out, the first thing I'm going to do on my computer is pull a tax roll. I'm going to go right to the county, whatever county that is. I'm going to pull a tax roll and I'm going to print it and I'm going to read it. That alone will educate you guys on your client. That'll tell you what your clients are paying taxes at. It'll tell you what they're paying taxes for. It'll tell you about the neighborhood and what they're paying, whether they're paying for the parks and whatnot. And that'll educate you. Maybe you can market, you got taxes going towards this park. You only pay $12 a year, things like that. The more educated you get with the documents that are in front of you, you can learn so much and sound so smart to your client. So that's what I'm looking for on a tax roll. Oops. Did I lose you guys? The other thing that I'm looking for on that tax bill, you guys, is for Y Green, Pace, or Hero. That's a big deal. Or special assessments. I want to know. The reason you're looking at that is you've got a buyer, maybe their debt to income is on the margin, meaning maybe we're at 45%. We can't take them over because they're not going to qualify. This is all they can afford. If you pull that tax roll and you see these high special assessments going to the community facility district or whatever it is, then you need to ask your loan officer before you invest all this time out there with them and showing them and getting them emotionally involved. Hey, can my buyers play ball with this property? Look at the taxes, look at the special assessments, because you could be spending all this time and they can't even afford to buy it. So that would be a behoove you. That would be the first thing I do if I even thought about going out to a property.
You said Pace, Hero, Y Green.
Or Y Green.
Y Green.
YGRENE. These are loans, you guys, and these are loans that are actually advertised somewhat like this. Hey guys, we can get you guys a great loan out here. We can get you all weatherization, drought landscaping, heating and air conditioning, dual pane windows, all brand new, stuffed doors. And by the way, no payments at all. So people hear this, they think, oh my God, but we all know nothing's free. If it sounds too good to be true, it is. And what they do with these loans, they will lend you this 30,000, 60,000, 90,000, and then they will include it into the property tax bill. So this bill right here, it's in the tax bill. That is why what I was saying earlier, hey, do you see the property taxes are number one on your title report? It's always the first thing you read on a title is taxes, right? Taxes get paid before anybody else does, before the mortgage. That's why a new lender won't allow a new loan to come in with a Y Green or Pace loan, because if that buyer defaults, Y Green and Pace gets paid before they do.
Interesting.
So
When we're looking at properties for people and we pull the tax roll, we'll see that.
you'll
So
see
they're
it.
prepared.
You'll see it in there. You'll see it broken down.
Minimal.
No.
Oh.
Well, it depends on what they bought. Depends. I mean, I've seen $25,000 loans, 30, 60, 90, $120,000 loans. And literally these guys, if you think about it, they amortize it over to their like 25 years. It's a car payment. It turns out to be like a $300 to $600 to $700 car payment. And I can't tell you, if I just say 10 people, 7 of them can't afford the home anymore after they do it. And that's why you're listing their property. It's sad. It's sad because people don't advertise correctly to people. And sometimes people want to hear what they want to hear. Don't get me wrong, and they think, oh, I want to do this. I want to do this for my home. It's such a great marketing tool. It's not a marketing tool. The next buyer doesn't want to entertain it. They don't want to take that on. They're going to demand that it gets paid off, and it will have to be paid off. So now we're taking 30 to 60 to 90 grand out of your seller's net to pay that off.
Oh, so it usually has to be paid off.
Has
before
to.
The property can turn.
It has to if the new buyer has a loan. If you got an all cash buyer that could care less, by all means, but they're not going to be able to sell it again without it. So if it was my buyer, by all means, it would be paid off.
I see.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes. So those are things to be paying attention to in your tax roll.
So I have buyers, I like to print the tax info, but they're looking at it like, well, oh, my taxes are only going to be, or the improvement, let's say, is like only 15 grand. Obviously that's going to change.
Absolutely. It's
So-
going to change based on the new sales price. In order to figure out what your buyer's taxes are going to be, here's your example. You take your sales price times 1.25% equals the annual installment. Divide that by 12. That's what they're paying by month. Now, that's what we used to be saying, I would say, for 30 years, but the rules have changed. Builders are coming in and nobody is fighting for us anymore. It makes me want to get on the board because there's these builders that are coming in here, and old school, we would let them come in, but we would say to them, hey, you got to build a school, you got to build these streets, and you're not putting all these assessments onto the parcels here. You're to be paying for stuff. You got to put some skin in the game to be able to play ball here. And now we're having builders that are coming out and assessing at 1.8%. These new homes out here, you better pay attention. With these new homes, 1.8 to 2.2%. So
Two that I've seen.
yeah, and so you have to pay, so if you've got a buyer here that their debt to income is, you're on the border, you better think twice before you go show them a new construction, or you're going to want to get that sales price down with your loan officer to make sure that you can feather in the tax roll into that and make sure that they can actually afford it, because they're being hit with a lot higher taxes these days.
Are those called the special assessment?
It's special assessment. It's the whole shebang. It's the whole shebang. The way the tax rolls hit, it's going to be, usually it's 1% it'll be 1% plus special assessment. So that's why we add the 0.25%, but the special assessments are now getting higher. So I actually now, when I get buyer's docs, I will pull the tax roll and I'll do it to the penny to make sure, are these buyers starting off on the wrong foot or the right foot? And then I'll tell the lenders, hey, you need to move these up, or you need to adjust these so that the buyer doesn't have that problem.
When buyers ask, does this property have Melrose tax? Will we see that? Is that?
You'll see that. Now, Melrose, let me just tell you, I'm just gonna say what I think. There's a lot of special assessments out there. Some of them are called Melrose. Some of them are called assessments. To me, if there's a dollar amount, add it up, because they may go, well, you told me Melrose were only $2,024, but there's $700 worth of other special assessments there. So you just break it down. You go, here's the tax roll. You're going to get this every year. This goes towards Melrose. This goes towards the park. This goes towards this. And I tell the clients too, look, keep in mind, that's why you're paying for this nice neighborhood. Your taxes are going to take care of and maintenance this. You're going to be entertaining it. You're going to be using it, but this is what your money's going towards. Yeah. Huh?
I don't think my clients wanting to know or talk about Melrose at all. Usually they just.
Yeah, that was like, it felt back in the day they used to, but I haven't heard so much of that.
It used to be, I'd say 3, 4, 5 years ago, but now they just don't care.
But money's been good. Money's getting tighter now. People are on a budget, and I think you might start seeing this a little bit more, right? Because you're squeezing your buyers in. But before you do that, look to see, is this even going to fit in my box? Are they going to be able to afford this? And then sometimes if they want that house so bad, like when I was a broker, I used to be a broker, I would then buy down that rate a little bit to justify those Melrose taxes. There's things they can do, pay off a credit card, pay off a car, so there's things you can do. It doesn't mean you can't play ball with that house, but you got to get creative and make sure your escrow team is creative. Okay, you guys. So now we're going to go into number 14. Those of you that work with me know that I discuss this conversation a lot. It's the supplemental tax bill. Your buyer, every buyer is going to be receiving a supplemental tax bill after they close escrow. And I tell people the bottom line, it's not your, there's two bills secured. This is a supplemental. So it's supplementing between the old sales price and your new sales price. If the sellers bought that house for $300,000 and your new sales price is $600,000, the buyers are going to be hit with a $300,000 supplemental. Yes.
Is it normal for supplemental to be a year and a couple months behind?
Yes, it is. My daughter bought a brand new construction DR out in Dixon. It took over a year to get, and I was prepping her. I'm like, it's going to be this, it's going to be this, it's going to be crazy money, but we were watching that website constantly. And I tell the clients, you're going to get this bill 3 to 4 months, 5 to 6, 7 to 8, could even be 9 months down the road. But the county will never forget about you. They're always going to catch up. You can set up with what the fiscal year is gone and they've already paid the bill. Then you can set up a payment plan for any arrearages. The county will. Yes. Yeah, we're all them there. But that is why you get a supplemental. It supplements between the two sales prices. And some buyers, you guys, can barely afford the mortgage they're taking on. So it would behoove you, and I use it as a marketing tool. I use it to try to get business. I'm like, look, I'm giving you the wisdom. This wisdom doesn't come out of everybody's mouth. You've got this tool. You go take it to your clients so that they can go let everybody know. My agent actually disclosed to me. My agent told me. My agent was educational, right? I mean, that's all people do is go and announce what happens. So you want them to talk like that about you. You want that energy going out. So that's why I do it, to try to market from behind the scenes, bring me those deals because they know they're going to be educated throughout their transaction. But it's a great thing to discuss. Make sure that your clients are aware of it. They will be getting it after close of escrow. But we always want them to know that it's coming. Make sure that you save some money for it and make sure you pay attention to the Solano County Assessor homeowners exemption that's coming in the mail. So that's about supplementals, but that's why we disclose it. You're starting to see lenders disclose it too in their loan documents. You're starting to see a page in there about supplemental taxes. So, so that they're not caught off guard, but that's what a supplemental is. Okay, number 15 is easements. Easements are giving access to to others, like utilities, PG&E, water easement. That gives permission for them to come out there and do work where their easement is located. It also means if your clients are getting ready to put in a pool, and you know that they are, a lot of people are, want to put in pool or put in their backyard, that you make sure that they understand where their easements are. Okay. Anybody that's working with country property, let us know. We will order you a plotted map so that you can actually see in color where those easements are located. Number 17 is release and relinquishment of abutters or access rights. So this is stating, hey, there's access to the property between the main street and the southerly boundary. Okay, moving on. Item number 18, you guys, is the covenants, conditions, or restrictions, limitations, easements, and assessments. This is what I tell people, your rules and your restrictions, whether you can have chickens out there, or raise chickens out there or not, it'll let you know whether you can pay, put your boat, you know, how high you can do your fence, whether your neighbors entertain it or not is another story, but that's what your CCNRs are.
Who do you go to change it?
You can't, they're actually already there. They're of record. So when the city came in and they allowed this builder to come in, they put these rules together so people don't act crazy. And that's when they get put in. So they put them together, they get recorded. It's already of record. It's there. It's not going to be removed. Now, let me just say one thing. There is a way, because there was discussion about race on some of the stuff, and there is a way to like black
Address
out
that.
part of that. Yeah, there is a way to address it.
Yeah.
I personally have never done it, but I'm happy to tackle it if you have any clients to do it. Okay, so number 10 is indicating here, or number 8 talks about matters, notice of delinquency. So see that the minute you see assessments, liens, delinquency, this is indicating that we have a homeowners association lien on title. Our sellers are behind on their HOA. We're going to have to pay that current. That's what that's letting me know. Number 10 is stating this is our open mortgage. Now it says that they borrowed $275,000 back in 2011. Some people may say, well, if they want to do a net sheet, you want to do a net sheet for your client, it would behoove you to just ask them, what's your principal balance? Send me a copy of your mortgage statement. I would want to see it from them. That way you're reading it yourself. You can see what their interest rate is. If I see all that information, I can give you a net sheet to the penny. And then you guys, we come to that is the end of the exceptions in our title report. So those exceptions are there to say, hey, buyer, hey, lender, do you guys want to play ball? Are you okay with all of these exceptions? Are you okay with the CCNRs and the easements? We're going to, of course, remove that HOA lien in the mortgage, but this is a preliminary snapshot of what we can produce for you through this escrow. And then it comes to informational notes. Now I read these religiously. The informational notes, you guys, actually gives you knowledge on what has transpired on this property in the last 3 years. You can see whether this was flipped. If you got a buyer that's buying this property and it's already modeled, you're like, oh, this looks great, but yet it was flipped a month ago, you may have a problem with the lender. So pay attention to the informational notes. It'll tell you whether the seller just bought that property 3 months ago or 6 months ago or a year ago and he's flipped it. So you want to pay attention to your office notes. It'll also disclose there whether you're dealing with a single family dwelling, multifamily dwelling. So pay attention to that. You might not even know it, but it's a multifamily. You got 2 units there to play ball with. And that is about all she wrote.
So the next up on the top,
Oh yeah.
go to the next tab.
Okay, you guys, I know I've got a lot going on and told you a lot, but some of this we probably have already gone over. I'm just going to start. This is going to go over red flags, what you want to pay attention to and make sure you're not in this position at closing. First thing is title withholding and tax deferred exchanges. So you always want to ask your seller, one, are you going to be around to sign your documents? Make sure that you have knowledge whether they're going to be here to sign paperwork or not. If you have a seller that literally is going to be leaving the country and you're in contract, we can get them in immediately to get what we need notarized before they leave the country. You want to find out also if your seller is a U.S. citizen. I've just had this happen, whether they're a U.S. citizen or not. Sometimes you don't even think to ask this question. Ask about it. It's going to be an ugly question if you ask it at the end, because if they're not a U.S. citizen, then we're immediately going to want to hold 15%, send it to the feds, 3 1/3% of their proceeds to send it to the state because they don't want them leaving the country without paying their taxes. So that's a big chunk off the bottom line. Make sure your client is a U.S. citizen or not. If not, no big deal. We just have to have a discussion about the money. Yes.
How would you recommend bring that?
Just like that. Are you a U.S. citizen or not?
Yeah. That's one thing.
Yeah, on your listing appointment, yeah, it's not discriminatory. You got it, and you tell them, hey, I'm gonna dig deep. I'm gonna ask some questions right now. This is how I would say, I'm gonna dig deep. I'm gonna ask a lot of questions. But my knowledge is my fiduciary duty is to you guys and to give you the best service that I can. So I'm gonna ask you some questions like, are you a US citizen? Have you filed for bankruptcy? Have you not paid any of your credit cards recently? Have you done any improvements? Did you lend anybody money that I should be aware of? Ask all those questions and say, I'm not using it for personal, but I got to dig deep. And my way to serve you is to know these things because I don't want something popping up at the end. And this is how we do it. You want to ask them, yeah, I had a client that didn't have a social, wasn't a US citizen. So we had to hold all this money, which was tough, but they had to do what they had to do. And it was at the 11th hour. And I didn't like that, but we had no knowledge that they were not US citizens. And the agent didn't even know. The agent didn't know either.
Maybe just telling them that sentence.
Yeah.
Like when you ask that question.
Yeah. Yeah. Are you a US citizen? You guys are selling a property. So I'm asking this for tax purposes. We need to discuss what's going to go on with your proceeds. And the government wants a piece of your pie. So that's why, or if you're not a US citizen, they're going to want to withhold 15% for feds, 3 1/3 for state. And then they're going to immediately want to give you, they're going to tell you, they're going to want to tell you.
Yeah. They've been in house for more than 2 years.
Yeah. Yes.
So somebody owns, I guess if they bought it cash, they may not have an ITIN number.
Well, the TIN number is going to be, no, they will. Yeah, they may not. They may not.
So I was just like, why would we need to tell them to apply for it?
Big deal, big reason. The minute your seller has passed away, ding, ding, ding. That is where this conversation comes in. The minute a seller's passed away and now you're working with a successor or a family member, it's an estate sale. The first thing I call my clients and I'll say, hey, agent, give me the seller's phone number. And I will call them directly and say, hey, just so you know, throughout this whole transaction, I don't care who asks you for your social, do not give it. Do not pull out your personal social security number. This is going to under the estate. You need to request a TIN number. Or we can use the seller social, but if it's under a trust, you're going to have to request a tax identification number. We don't want to report the sale under you as an individual. The minute they hear that, they're on board. They're like, yep, I don't want to have anything to do with these taxes. We want to report it under the trust, under their tax identification number. That's why we never want to ask the client, and they're just filling out paperwork. They're like, here's my auth, here's my social, even though they're doing it on behalf of mom. We want to say, hey, don't give this your social. Let's make sure this is mom's and mom's tax identification number if mom's not passed away. And it's easy. I hear, never done it myself, that it takes less than 10 minutes to get a tax identification number. So if you're not aware, your client isn't aware, offer them to talk to their CPA or tax consultant to assist them in getting it for them. And just for your knowledge, don't put their socials on anything. You want to report it all under the estate or the trust. Yes. Okay. My lender asks questions and I generally don't get involved in those types of financials. Am I wrong? No, if you don't have the knowledge, you guys, then don't say it. People will respect you, I believe, that much further if you tell them, I don't know, but I'll get back to you on it. I don't know. I'll let you know, but I'll have someone get in touch with you that does. And feel free. That's why we're here. Feel free to ask us. We will point you in the right direction. We are your affiliate. We are your liaison. We're a team when we're in escrow together. We're a team, even though we don't have an escrow. So don't hesitate to lean on us and ask questions. We're happy to help. And I think your people will respect that. Okay, so next we're going to hit escrow red flags, withholding maybe 3 1/3%. So if your sellers indicate to you that this has been an investment property for them, that is great. The first thing I say to them is, well, all these years you haven't had any tax benefits, but now you're actually going to see it. All that depreciation, all the money that you put into this property, you weren't seeing that every year when you filed your taxes. However, when you sell it, this final settlement statement is going to give you everything that you've been waiting to see. So definitely make sure to find out, was this an investment property? Have you lived here 2 out of the last 5 years? That is a question that you should be asking your clients relentlessly, because if not, we're going to be talking about taxes, which we're talking about their bottom line, which you don't want to have that conversation a fourth into the escrow. So you want to know that up front. And if it's an investment property, the math is 3 1/3%. 3.33% of your sales price is going to the franchise tax board, or 12.3% of the gain. 99% of the people do not know what their gain is, so it's usually 3 1/3. But if you've got an investor or a client that is selling an investment and they want to do the math, let us know ahead of the game. We send out our opening package right when we open escrow, so it gives the sellers an opportunity to work on it. But make sure your escrow officer knows so that we can handhold them, make sure that they understand the franchise tax board and how it works and what they need to get prepared for. So now you can avoid capital gains if you have an LLC or a corporation. That's why they hold those licenses, to avoid paying the 3 1/3%. So just so you know, when you're dealing with an investor, you don't have to worry about that part. They have the approval to do with their taxes when they file. Tax withholding and tax deferred exchanges. So a tax deferred exchange is a great way to avoid your sellers from paying capital gains. And it's another way to market for you to get another deal out of them. So if you're selling a property that's got equity here and they don't know what to do with their money, they know they're going to reinvest it in some investment. I would even be marketing people big time right now that hold investments, because now is the time. Rents are high, right? Rents are huge. So if these rents that they're collecting on these properties that they've held for 10 years, if they flip that right now, they could be going out and getting a lot more income in rents, right? Could almost say that with my eyes closed. So if you are working with people like that have got some equity there, you can refer them to an exchange company. We have our own exchange company, and the exchange company actually holds the money on behalf of the seller until they find the next property. And I've got great tools on that. Don't hesitate to ask. I can send you a great email with information on it for a 1031 exchange. It would behoove you guys to get educated on an exchange and how it works too. The more knowledge you have, the more impressive you are with your client.
If you need that, we can set up a whole nother Zoom on that too.
Yeah.
If anyone will tell you if you haven't heard it already.
The next thing we're going to talk about are judgments, liens, and bankruptcy. Judgments and liens in bankruptcy is an ugly thing. We don't want to see this. This is actually what we're actually paying attention to see if we have any of it on there. But this is another reason why you want to have that conversation with your seller up front to find out whether they're, had any hardships. If they've had hardships, just know we may encounter some of these things. And if they do, it's not a big of a deal. A lien is a lien. A lien is there because somebody couldn't pay the money. We will then order a payoff demand directly, and we will find out exactly what is owed. But just know this, if that lien was recorded, let's just say hypothetically in 2012 for $5,000, today it could be $25,000 with interest. Interest is accruing from the date it recorded. And even before that, they just recorded it because they weren't even getting money. So just know, when you just see, if it just says 5,000, don't assume that's what it is. Assume there's interest on top. But we can get around those. We can pay those off. Also a bankruptcy. If you are you want to ask your seller, if they are involved in a bankruptcy, find out who the bankruptcy attorney is. That's all we really need. We can make a phone call to them and get what we need. We need an approval from the courts to be able to close escrow. Even though your client will tell you, I didn't put the house in the bankruptcy. That's going to be the first thing they say. They didn't, but anytime you file a bankruptcy, it automatically puts the house in. So we have to have approval from the judge to be able to close escrow with allowing them to have an active bankruptcy, which is never a problem to get, but it will need to be requested. And short sales. I haven't talked about short sales in a minute, but you may see these. A short sale is a property where the seller owes more on the property than what the house is valued at. So I'm great at short sales. We have a team who's amazing at short sales. It's a lot of negotiating, but it can be done, and the banks are willing to get at least something for it. So if you've got sellers out there that haven't made mortgage payment, they just want to walk away, tell them, no, let me help you. Let me tell you why. If you do a short sale versus just walking away from that bank, it's going to be 10 times better on your credit. A lender looks at that. They look to see if you just walked away and you did nothing, or did you make the effort to try to get them something? And you're going to say, yeah, I'll get you a deal out of this. I'll get the bank as much as I can for you. And by the way, we're not going to just work for the bank. We're going to try to get you some money out of the deal. I'll try to get people 10 to 20 grand, and I've gotten it, out of it. I'm like, look, seller needs a move out fee. Seller needs this to get going, and we'll get it. But a closed mouth doesn't get fed. Make sure you're working with the right team on a short sale. Okay, so the next thing, judgments, liens, bankruptcies, we hit that. Trust, probate, and court orders. We talked about a little bit about trust, but a living trust is the best way your clients can hold title, you guys, literally the best way they can hold title, because if one of them passed away during our transaction, you can still close escrow. It automatically reverts, the trust does, to the successor, and allows their successor to finish up the paperwork on their behalf. If you have a seller that says that they're in a trust, when you go to their house to take that listing agreement, you want to find out, has anybody passed away? Anybody passed away? If nobody's passed away and it's just the husband and wife there and they're in a living trust, that's great. We do not need a copy of the trust. We don't need it. A lot of times people will think, oh, wait, they need that trust. We don't. We only need it when somebody's passed away. Then we have to entertain their original wishes, whatever that original seller's wishes were. We can't just go sell the property and do whatever, these people want. We have to entertain what they want. And also you have to have a trust bank account set up. The money doesn't go to the successor. It's going to go to like the McGanty Living Trust. That's where it's going to go. It's not going to go to the kids or whoever the successor is. And some people might go, oh, I don't have a bank account. Get your binder, pull out your trust paperwork and get down to the bank.
So if the trust says, when I die, everything goes to my daughter.
Yeah.
So you're saying that if I die, she can't just accept the money? Like it.
She could accept it. She could accept it. However, there's a lot of tax benefits by having a trust bank account. Number one being an inheritance. So if that money, if that title company sent it directly to her as an individual, taxable money, taxable. If it was sent to the trust, non-taxable. Government doesn't get a piece of the pie. But there's a lot of other reasons why you do that as well. It's huge. It's huge. So I tell your sellers, though, even if nobody's passed away, they've got a living trust. You want to ask them, do you have a trust bank account? Do you have a bank account set up in the name of that trust? I'd say 50% of them do not. And it's a huge deal. You want to tell them, you're going to need to take your binder down, take your trust. I always ask them, do you have a binder? A lot of times the attorneys will give them a binder. Take it to the bank, get your trust bank account set up now. People will have a fit if you tell them to do this 10 days before closing escrow. They're moving, they're trying to do all this stuff. They're going to have a fit. You tell them in the beginning, you tell them, I'm giving you a punch list. These are things that you need to do. And this is to avoid drama and stress throughout the back end of this. Get this done and make sure that when we're asking for a copy of the trust for your wisdom, we want to start with a table of contents page and we want to end with a signature page that's signed and notarized. Those pages in between, we need every page. It says 1 through 30. I need 1 through 30. I can't be missing page 15. I need to see what page 15 said. So those are the things that you're going to want to ask your clients. And if you have this knowledge up front, you're going to look a lot better on that first appointment than you are going back asking for this, asking for that. So those are the things that you want to ask for and just tell them to set it aside and get it prepared. As a title company, you could always have it ran, tell them, bring it by the title company. We will scan immediately what we need, give it right back to them, and they're on their way. Okay. Court orders, probate and court orders. Got one of those today. I've got an agent. She says, okay, Melika, we opened escrow like the day before. And then she's like, oh, we already have a state. I'm like, a state? I'm like, well, what do you mean it's a state? Oh, you're on the title report yet? Because I can't tell. They already had the estate approved by the court. That means the seller died and the judge has awarded somebody to sell this property on their behalf. So when you've got that, get your title company involved immediately because we need certified orders. We don't just need a copy of something. We actually need certified orders. That can take a week or two to get directly from the county, whatever county you're dealing with. So make sure to get all that paperwork to your escrow officer immediately or educate them so they can tell you. Yes.
I have a quick question about probate. So I know obviously probate's someone who dies without a trust.
Yes.
Right? Or a living will.
Yes.
So when I got my house, I did a will and I had notarized. Would it still go to probate?
Yep.
Or?
It'll still go to probate. You need like a affidavit life tenant, a deed for like life of tenant. You would either need a trust or you have to prepare your title to reflect it.
Can you give a deed upon death?
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking.
So
A deed
how do
upon
you
death.
do that?
You have to have it prepared. You have to have it prepared either by a title. Well, we don't prepare those, but like a trust attorney or a real estate attorney, you can have that done. If you don't want to do a trust, there are deed upon deaths, which I've got a good referral if you need for that.
That's that too, though.
Yeah, well, if you have a will, and then so the family will be like, they had a will, and then I'll say, okay, they can request what's called a Hegstead probate, which is a lot shorter than a regular probate. A Hegstead is like, hey, we already have the tools in front of us. We knew the intent was for this. We knew they intended, the will says this. We knew they intended to put it in the trust. They just didn't get a chance to. That's what a Hegstead probate is called. So that's where you would fall under, but it would definitely go to probate if you don't have it done.
There's trust, we do a trust. I've been in 3 probates. I just finished another one.
Yeah. It's the best money you will spend.
Some $1,000, so.
Oh, that's crazy.
It
But
is.
trust, if you have a trust, you're not gonna be paying that kind of money. at all.
That's right.
Not
That's
to be
right.
probate.
That's right.
Right.
There's, yeah. Great question. I'm glad you asked.
What point would you recommend somebody in a trust?
Immediately, the minute you buy a home, they can get into a car accident tomorrow. You know, I had a young veteran Air Force guy that I signed yesterday, and I'm like, you are in the military, you get paid legal services, go get this done immediately. And he was writing in his thing. I was just signing him up to buy the house. So I'm telling him then, go get a trust. It's the best way that you could hold title. Even when COVID came out, I went and did my trust because I didn't have a trust and I've been talking about it for years. But then COVID came, I'm like, and I went and did it, deeded my property into it and got my bank account set up. And then you want to give that trust to your successors. Make sure, like for my kids, make sure that they have a copy of the trust because they're going to have to take that and abide by all of your wishes. You know, and I've had a trust where the fires here that happened, their trust burnt down, the lawyer's office was no longer involved. We had to go to probate for that.
Oh, no.
Yes. Yes.
Oh, I mean, I'll be dead, so it doesn't really matter.
It's what the kids or whoever your successors are going to have to deal with. So that is why you want to handle these things up front. And if you can give this wisdom and knowledge to your clients, even if they're not doing something, it's a piece of knowledge that they will take. And then like this gentleman, he's just went through 3 probates. He understands how important it is. And other people sometimes have had family members that have too as well, especially when you've got a household with a lot of kids or combined households. So important because it's always good until it's not. And people come out of the woodwork when people die. That's when people get crappy. So that would avoid all of that and avoid the kids from fighting. It avoids everything. Okay, so another red flag here, you guys, are deposits, initials deposits. We're always asking for your initial deposit. Those of you that work with me know that we're calendaring it. We're following up on those deposits. And one thing we want to make sure is that your clients do not send us an initial deposit via ACH. It's a way to send money. We don't cooperate with ACH and we will reject any ACH payments. So that, I don't talk about that too much, but just want to tell you that our deposits are really easy for Old Republic. We have that Zocam app and we can actually, your client can download our app, take a picture of the check, like mobile banking, goes right into our escrow. There are no fees involved. It's seamless and touchless. So that's a great option, or a wire. They can bring in a cashier's check, but make sure that what I find out a lot of times, you guys, I find out that your clients don't even know what the deposit is. They don't even know how much the deposit's going to be, and they don't know when they're supposed to even get it there, and they don't know who to make the check payable to. So that would behoove you is to educate them on that process. Let's see, closing funds. Just so you know, when it comes to closing funds, we do not accept a personal check. We only accept a wire or a cashier's check because we're usually closing the next day. Okay.
It's not Zocam. You can't use the Zocam app on that either.
Yes, because that's only a personal check. And make sure that your clients know where to bring those personal funds from. Make sure that they're bringing it from the bank account that their loan officer approved, not from some bank account. We want to make sure that the paper trail is seamless, or it will hold us up at funding. We do ask for, when it comes to the cashier's check, I always tell the people under the memo section, put your account number. I don't need my escrow officer there, my escrow number there. I don't need the property address there. The underwriter who's going to be looking at this money needs to see the account number there, the account number that you pulled, whether it was the savings or the checking, so they can match that up on your bank statement, and that will handle our paper trail. So that's also another great thing to say. And then I think that is all she wrote.
Double check your wires before you send them. Right, Melika?
Yes, double check your wires. That's the biggest thing I can tell you guys. Wire fraud is out there and it is relevant big time. Those of you that put your bank account information or email your people with your routing and account number, you're the biggest person to go after. The scammers will go after you in a heartbeat. If they see that social, see that account number, you're an easy target. Make sure that you call your escrow officer. Make sure that they send you, a form to be completed. We will send them out via DocuSign. We'll put a secured email on it so they can access. And then we're actually even going to call you to verify that wire information so that we're not sending it out to the bank off the Cayman Islands. So with all that, you guys, I hope that you guys have an amazing day. I hope that you get lots of business out there. And I hope that you think of Melika McGanty when you go to write those contracts. Wishing you all a happy new year and a successful day. Thank you for your time.
You guys, we're always here for you. Whatever you need, give us a call. If it's an escrow we don't personally have in our office, we'll help you. If you have a question, that's what we're here for, is to help. So thank you guys for attending. We appreciate it.
Thank you.